Hey friends, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee, where we keep it real, raw, and a little bit caffeinated. I'm your host, Ashley Henriott, speaker, author, and your go-to hype girl for when life feels like a lot. Around here, we talk about things that keep you up at night. Self-doubt, fear, people-pleasing, faith, and finding your voice again, without the fluff. So grab your coffee, pull up a seat, and let's talk about stuff that actually matters. Welcome back, Confidence and Coffee listeners. Don't I have a treat for you? Well, two treats. We're having a two-part series because that conversation was just so good. And before I get to that, I know you're thinking, whoa, new setup? I know I am, and I'm really excited. I mean, we're not even halfway done. We got a sign coming, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we moved from a chair to a couch. We've got two mics, updated mics, a mini fridge, and snacks because we are leveling up, and that's thanks to you. Those reviews, those ratings, when you subscribe and share and tag us on social media, it does something. And so continue to leave those and share if this podcast brought you any kind of value at all. I know I would appreciate it. And so would the other listeners that would also tune in. Now, let's get back to this two-part series thing. Okay, listen, when I tell you the conversation was so good, I sit down with David Alford and Joseph Stam about their new movie, Searching for the Elephant. And it's not what you think. In part one, which you're going to be listening to today, we're going to go behind the brilliant minds of David and Joseph. We're talking about the heart behind the film, the addiction, broken family dynamics, and redemption. All of it. David and Joseph don't just create movies. They tell raw, real, and redemptive stories that hit you right where you live. In part two, which drops next Tuesday, they take us even deeper into the creative process of this powerful narrative. This amazing God-led project is more than just a film you go see at a movie theater or on your computer. It is a story that each of us can relate to in some way. And it is a story that they brought to life. So get ready, grab your coffee, your water, your tea, and your tissues, because you're in for something magnificent that God is doing and that will go on through generations. So let's go ahead and listen to today's episode, Searching for the Elephant. Hey, you guys, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee. I am so honored to have our guest today, which I told them I may keep them. This is Joseph Stam. Did I say that? I probably said
Joseph
it wrong.
Stam. Yep.
I said it right. And then David Alford, which I have to tell David a fun fact, and I wanted to wait till I had you guys in on this. But really quick, let me introduce you to my friends. They wrote a very, very powerful movie, and it's already out. Well, I got to see it. I don't know if you guys got to see it. It's called Searching for the Elephant. Now, when I heard this title, you guys, I was like, what? Like, what? Like, what is this? Are we real? Like, is this, what is this? Like, but it was very intriguing to me. And then when I watched the movie, I could definitely see why, because I found it inspiring. Like, I'm curious though, David Alford, Alford. Is it Alford or Alford?
Alford.
So my great grandmother was an Alford. Like, yeah, we have origins in Alabama. We're like Pruitts and Alfords. I'm a Henriott Nava, but like when I saw your last name, like I have like some Alfords in my Southern family. So I was like curious about where you were from, and I'm like,
Our family is originally from Tennessee, Murfreesboro area. They moved out to Oklahoma, and that's when we went from being Alford to Alford, because that's the accent in Oklahoma.
Alford.
Alford.
And mine's
That's how
from
they swap it.
Alabama. The Alfords are in Alabama, so it's Alford.
So my family went from Oklahoma to Texas, and then we moved back to Virginia. My family, my immediate family did. So we've done the full Southern circuit now. We've covered the whole southern half of the country.
I'm in Virginia now.
Are you? Oh, we're in Southwest by Tennessee.
Oh yeah, well, I'm in Northern Virginia. I actually moved here from the Outer Banks of North Carolina to Northern Virginia, right outside of DC.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're neighbors. Yeah.
Well, hi. Then you're totally stuck with me now. Totally stuck with me now. Okay, listen, back on the film, ADHD's kicking in, you guys. Listen, what inspired the story of searching for the elephant? Are there like personal experiences or societal issues that influence its creation?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that question. And such a fair question because every film or story you write has something personal in it.
Yeah.
It may not be exact. It may not be like we literally haven't dealt with addiction in our families or in our lives, but everybody around us has. It seems like, like I said, we're in Southwest Virginia, and addiction and addiction issues are so prevalent here. You can't find a family that hasn't been affected by it in some way, shape, or form. But when it came to telling the story, I was just coming up with ideas for films and ideas for plots. We'd done a few films already. It was time to start thinking about the next one.
Yeah.
And we'd written all of our stories ourselves, kind of from based on life experiences, but in kind of a different world. So we're not really even very Western. We don't live near farms or ranches. We're kind of city boys. But either way. Well, the idea behind it was I liked starting with characters, really strong characters. And I thought, how interesting would it be if you took two people who had built up so many defenses around themselves, so many
Yeah.
walls around themselves, and had isolated themselves from everyone in their lives because of hurts and wounds and injuries, including God. They had shut him out too. And what would it be like if I put them in a place where they were so tightly confined that they were forced to interact with each other? So that's what came with the idea of having a grandfather and an estranged grandson, both very troubled in different ways, both very isolated in different ways, and force them to have to live in the same house on a ranch for a year because of some legal issues. And so by putting them together, they're forced to reckon with their own issues and each other's as well too. And the story is about those layers kind of being peeled back. And they really don't like each other. They really don't get along. It's almost comical how badly they get along at first. But watching them get to learn themselves through each other is something I think that a lot of people who are isolated need to go through. I mean, it's so easy to isolate ourselves in this culture and day and age. I mean, staying at home and cutting yourself off from the outside world is really easy to do now, easier than ever. And so I'm hopeful that people will see these characters and see some of themselves in it and go, yeah, maybe I need to reach back out to those family people I cut off, or maybe I need to let God back in, and let him shine a little light in this dusty old house that I'm living in. That's where the idea for the story came from.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you're crafting stories. Sometimes you're not sure exactly where things are coming from, and sometimes you're not hyper aware. It's just kind of coming out of you and it's just kind of flowing, and the Lord is just kind of working. And then you kind of take a step back after that first draft and you realize the parallels and the themes that are going on and where your mind is going. And so, there's things in there that touches everyone, of like feelings of isolation and hurt and PTSD and generational trauma and things like that. And then not everyone has dealt with things like addiction. And so, that was an interesting process for me, portraying a character who's experiencing that, to, do a lot of research and meet with people who are going through recovery or had gone through recovery, and they were super vulnerable with me about their stories. And so kind of taking on their stories and trying to infuse that into my character and kind of live that out in a very truthful way was a lot of responsibility, but a really rewarding process in the end.
Yeah, the backstories of these. So the film dwells into the themes of addiction, family dynamics, and redemption. And my question to you, and let me explain first, like I am from a family of addiction. There's a reason I wrote a book. Like my life is full of tragedy. Like my ex was an addict who abandoned my first two older children. My mom is an addict. She's in a halfway house now, thank God. And my sister actually last year, as the book was coming out, I lost my grandmother who was an alcoholic. And then, she died. I was with her. We prayed. Like, I was the last person she talked to. She was my safe person.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, I found out that my baby sister overdosed in her house and passed away. Yeah. So when I watched the film, I genuinely related on such a deep level because I connected to your character, Joseph. I connected to the character and kind of like I saw a little bit of sabotage. Like that's what I gained from the film. And like I was at a place for me in my life where it we moved all the time. I was literally born in the same trailer park as Slim Shady. Eminem. So
Right.
I went from Detroit to Gadsden, which is the poorest county to live in the country in Alabama. So I went from like two different hoods, and we moved so much that like I can't even remember all the houses we lived in. And that was always like the way we functioned. Like I only knew not to feel safe. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And when I came to the certain age, when I was watching your character, I did the things, right? One of the things to bring it up, because we just got really heavy for 2 seconds, is I watched the scene with the police officers. He was like in the car, like he was unhinged, your character, and the police officers were like, it was funny. Like, I love how you added a little bit of humor in that, because I think your characters of the movie, like that kind of thing. And then what I relate to is like, we did find weird humor. We laugh at our own trauma. And so I appreciated that, because like, you have to laugh in some of these things because you'll cry. But crying is good, just maybe not all the time. But anyways, I want to know about the film, and like what message do you hope audiences take away from these intertwined narratives? Because that's what I got, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for sharing that and
Yeah.
being so vulnerable with your story. And it sounds like you're sharing that with people, which is very important and I'm sure very hopeful for people. So I'm interested to hear more about your story. But yeah, I would say for people with getting to know Jason, I know for people that I talked to who are in recovery or have gone through recovery, what they got from the film was that they identified with Jason's feelings and the tough things that he went through. And they found the hopeful message at the end and the redemption that was possible at the end very inspiring. And it was something that gave them, something to aspire to. That there's maybe hope for them as well. And so there's some different recovery programs who have wanted to show the film, at their programs to kind of have something to relate to, and then a message of hope at the end. And for people who aren't literally going through addiction, people who are around it, or people just everyone has a Jason or a Griff in their life, someone who isolates themselves, or they have multiple Jason or Griffs in their life. And they are hurt and they isolate themselves, and it's hard to reach out to those people, and it's hard to understand those people sometimes. And film is a tool that God has given us, and it's a really special tool. And what film does is it allows us to be really close up to people in a safe space for 2 hours, and we're really close to these people that we may never want to get that close to in real life. We may be related to some people that we don't really want to be that close to, but film forces us to be that close to them and understand them and empathize with them for 2 hours. And so hopefully people can walk away from the film, and they can, when they see that Jason or Griff in their life after that, they can look at them maybe in a different way. And maybe they can see where they might be coming from. They can empathize or sympathize with them in a different way, because they were just able to do that in this safe space with these characters, and hopefully that translates to their real life as well.
And I think it's important too, because people who are in the midst of addiction themselves, they realize what they're doing to the people who love them. They know how badly they're disappointing them. They know how badly they're hurting them. And they can't, that guilt piles on top of everything else they're already going through. And these characters experience that. They have people in their lives that love them. I mean, Jason's mom loves him and will do anything for him. She loves him enough to give him tough love. And so I think for him, he feels that disappointment she sees in him every time. And I think that for that to weigh so heavily on these characters, that chance that maybe I can become someone that they're proud of again, that hope for that is something that a lot of people struggling with addiction want. It's something they really, but maybe have stopped believing that it's possible. And to see it in the film, I think it is not only possible, but with God's help, it's doable. It's something that you can get back to. And that's what the movie taps into. And I think it's why that ending is so potent. We often, I mean, we were at the theater premieres, we saw the audiences live. There were a lot of tears in the audience at the end of that film. And it's not that it's this big drama moment, it's what it means. It means that there's a way back, that there's a way for this family to reconnect again. And I think people need to see that happen in film, so maybe they can realize it can happen in their life too.
They need that hope.
Yeah.
Because that's what God is about. I want to stay on the character of Jason for a minute. So Maybe you both have something to say. How do you envision the evolution of Jason Bowden, like throughout the film? Are there like specific challenges or arcs you'd like to highlight?
Jason was an interesting character. And for him, there's such a history back of it. I think Joe spent a lot of time really putting together his own personal history. I'll let him tell how he went about that process.
So, like, I had to, develop a three-dimensional person. Jason, I don't know, the addiction side of things was something that I, watched dozens and dozens of documentaries on, did all the research about withdrawals, had someone on set to make sure it was, as accurate as we could do it.
Really?
Met with people and tried to, do everything as accurately as possible. Um, but then I also, aside from all of that, I didn't want to focus on that and act like that's the entire character, because it's not. Like, that's something that he's
Yeah.
experienced. He's a three-dimensional person, and he wasn't always addicted to drugs. He was a person before this. And so, and this is something that he's experiencing now. And he's using this to numb what's going on in his life. And so I think it was interesting developing his backstory from his earliest.
I was
Sorry, go ahead.
about to ask about the backstory elements for Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. So I developed his backstory just from his earliest memories with what he would have remembered with his dad, memories that he would have had with him, and with his mom, and his earliest memories up until, through school, what relationships he had had, what his girlfriends he had had, what journey he had into drug addiction, what friends he had, what, just mapping out his entire life from his first memories up until when the film starts. So it feels like a whole life is being lived before the first frame of the film. And so that was really important. And I worked on that for about 4 months, just developing, a lot of details about him, and then developing his look, because he's very intentional with the way he presents himself to the world. He's trying to communicate with everything about him. His tattoos aren't just there because they look cool. They're trying to communicate something. His diamond tattoo on his neck is he feels like everyone looks down on him and thinks he's worthless. So he's stamping himself with that approval that he's special and that he's worth something. But then he also has that dichotomy of that snake on his arm, because he feels like that's what everyone looks at him. Everyone just thinks he's a snake, and so he's okay. I'll accept that part of me too, but that's what I am, And so then he has this, grungy look and everything, and the costumes I was just developing with the costume designer, and her and I would just go to thrift stores and, Goodwills and stuff like that, and just go and try different things constantly, just buying a bunch of stuff. And then I would go and dress up in character and go to different cities and just be in character and just walk down the streets and things like that, and just try to live like him for a little bit. And that was a really eye-opening experience, just seeing how people perceive him and look down on him. And it totally made me understand the edge that he has, and the distance that he keeps everyone at. And then, at the core of all of this, I really needed to get down to his brokenness and his hurt and his rage that he carries with him every day of his life, that he has ever since his dad died. And something broke in him there that was never fixed. And so for me, it was a matter of finding that hurt and that rage, and then staying in it and not letting it out. And that was probably the most painful thing, was not letting it out. When we were shooting, I had to just kind of stay in the character. So when I went to set in the morning, I would get into character, and then all day for our 12-hour shoot day, I would just stay into character. And then at the end of the day, I would just kind of, I was driving home, I would like get out of character, and people just naturally just started calling me Jason on the set, the crew and everything, because it was strange for them because they knew me, and it was strange for them to call me Joseph when they could clearly see that I wasn't Joseph. And so I just needed to stay in it, because it's not something I could just snap in and out of. Every day I was just trying to keep that rage inside and not let it out. And it was one of the most relieving scenes to film in the entire movie. The one where he goes and he confronts Griff about his dad, and he has that, he goes in on him, but that rage and that hurt that you see so fiercely in that scene is something that Jason carries with him every single day of his life. And you know, I think a lot of people expect that scene to be one of the hardest to film. And in some ways it was, but in some ways it was the easiest, because that rage and that hurt was something I was carrying with me every single day we were shooting, you know, for the month. And that was the one time I could actually let it out. And so, yeah, it was definitely, yeah, a tricky character. Just finding, you know, I his music, you know, was a big part of it. I had a playlist of about 350 songs of his, you know, music that he liked to listen to, and certain music for different moods that he was in, you know, and just trying to make a fully fleshed out three-dimensional person.
Who was very different from you. I mean, you have to know that the character of Jason in the film is about as 180 opposite of Joseph as you could possibly get. So I think trying to find that and find that moment was just really exciting to watch. As a director and a writer, it was exciting to see that character come to life, and largely due to part of Joseph's working so hard on all the details as you're hearing about.
And then also in David's writing, I mean, it was all there in the writing. I had the foundation to jump off of, because it was a three-dimensional person in the script, and David had written him so masterfully in the beginning. And so I could just take that and run with it and just add details. And so the core of who he was and the emotional journey, like you were saying, and trajectory was all there. And so it was just a matter of just portraying it honestly. And that was something that was interesting to work on together on the film set. Was it was interesting, was some scenes developed in a way that we really didn't expect, but it was just the most honest way. And then it was interesting with the crew members, of having them kind of have their thoughts kind of bleed into the film, even though they're not directing. It was kind of like a best idea wins sort of set. And we had people who had sons who, you know, were addicts, and who had other family members who were addicts. And so they were sitting there and being like, and giving us, you know, advice on the direction of the scene and what we were doing in real time. So it was a collaboration between all these people who really cared about it and who had various levels of experience with it.
But it was important that it be true. I mean, it's important that these people be believable. I think one of the big mistakes we make when we make Christian films is we make it in a world as we wish it were. And it comes across very artificial. And people who aren't Christians who watch Christian movies look at this story and go, I've never seen people act like that before. Or I've never seen situations tie up with this lovely neat bow like that before. That's not how my life is. I don't relate. And so for us, it was really important that we make a film about people who are broken in a very real way and working through problems in a very hard way, like it does in real life more often than not. So finding something truthful and believable in a world that's truthful and believable, we find that to be a much more effective way to talk about God than other ways. It was important to be honest as possible and as rich and real as possible.
And I can see that through you guys right now, just the authenticity and the passion. And I really thank you so much, Joseph, for helping me understand Jason's motivation, right? Like that drive and that, because that's so important to like connect in why he does, or the choices that he made, or the situations that he got himself into. And I definitely had so much compassion for him. And as you're talking, I'm just curious, Joseph, and I want to know, like, how did you guys both merge your like own creative visions to bring this story to life? Like the backstory, I just find actors so, I mean, what is that called in what you did? Like just really taking on that character. I want to go off of that like so bad, but I don't want to like take away from and honor this movie. But I appreciate what you do. I just find it absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I
But
really
like,
appreciate it.
I want to know how you both, Joseph, like emerged your creative visions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, David's just such a good director, and he never tells me what he's after. He never tells me, as when I'm acting with him, he never tells me what to do or where he's trying to get. He just asks me questions, and I'll find my own way there, you know? And I guarantee it's where he wanted me from the very beginning, but he, you know, I have to find it myself. Otherwise, it's not going to be authentic, and it's not going to be real, and it's not going to be coming from me. It'll be me just doing what he said to do, you know? And so that's always like the little balance that he does that is so tricky, and I admire about him so much. I mean, he's been working with actors for so long, and I find this.
Oh, so
I didn't say that,
You kind of walked into that one, Joseph, a little bit.
right in there.
but it's really a gift to like be able to talk to actors and to be able to realize what they need and the process, their process, and how to work within their process to ask them the right questions to get them to the right space. And I say the right space. There's no right and wrong in acting, you know? Like we tried so many different versions of so many different scenes, especially like that one after the police confrontation. You know, like we tried so many different versions of that scene, and that was one of the most frustrating scenes for me.
Yeah, we
Was
kept
it
stopping and going,
really?
oh,
Yeah.
that's that back in the room after he's yelled at the police. They go back in the house and the two confront each other.
Yeah.
We did that scene several times. It was just, and Joseph would stop in the middle. Like, I can't, I can't find it. And then
Well, it just felt it was just that day. I don't know. I was just tired. I just couldn't find it. I felt like I was forcing everything, and it just felt fake. And I was like, I'm just saying these words. I don't like I'm not.
and he got really frustrated. I mean,
Yeah.
he had to go kind of in the other room and kind of cool off for a bit.
Yeah.
He was just getting frustrated mostly with himself because
Yeah.
he knows when he's being authentic and he knows when he's not. And on camera, cameras are so brutally, painfully honest. They're lie detectors. When you put a camera in an actor's face, if they are lying, everybody in the world knows it. And the best actors in the world are the ones who can just be as authentic as they can and let that camera look into them and find what's going on. They're not bringing drama to the camera. They're letting the camera go inside them and find it. And that's when you as an audience member are going, what are they thinking? What are they doing? And you're leaning in, trying to figure out where they are in that moment. And that requires a lot of discipline for an actor to let that space exist. And Joseph and many of the actors we had in this film are really terrific about letting that space exist and letting the audience lean in and read into them what they're experiencing. Because I guarantee you, two people in the audience will look at that actor and look at the moment and go, oh, he's thinking this. No, he's thinking this. And they both are putting themselves into the scenario and they're getting out of it what they want. And a good actor lets an audience have space to do that. And I think
Rick McVeigh, who plays Griff, is so good at that. I mean, he's incredible in the film, and he was so strong. You know, we were talking about that police scene. He's just a lovely guy. He's just so strong, and he was just there for me, and our dynamic was really great. And so he's just a person who makes you feel very comfortable, and he's very genuine. And so I felt okay that I could lash out at him this way, and I could go and be this horrible to him because I knew like he was gonna be all right, and that
and he'd meet you with it. He'd meet you energy.
he would meet me there, and we had just gotten to know each other that well, you know, before we started, I think too, which was so fun. Kind of built our own dynamic, like kind of grandson, grandfather sort of ish dynamic before that. But yeah, no, so that scene that we did, that police scene, I remember it wasn't until you were just like, okay, just like you threw out a couple ideas for me of like, you can go do this, you can go do this. Just throw out all the blocking, throw out all the different levels we talked about, throw out all the lines, just like tell him what you need to tell him, essentially. And it wasn't until then that we just kind of found it, and it came out in a very different way. It was one of those things when I was playing Jason, I hadn't had this before when I was acting, but when action was called, it was like I blacked out. And then when it was cut, then I just kind of like came to, and it was back. And I couldn't tell you what just happened or like what I did in between necessarily, like, or what I exactly said, or, you know, they would say, oh, that was great. Could you redo that? And like point like at that same moment. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I just did.
No idea what
I don't know. I was just like living in the moment, you know, and being as authentic in that moment as I could. And then when it was done, it was just done. And so it was a strange thing, especially in that shower scene. I don't remember that at all. So then like seeing it in the film and seeing the footage afterwards, like I really didn't remember like most of that. And I thought, because I remember having the thought of like bang my head up against the wall at one point too. I don't remember if I did that.
That was not in the script. No.
I don't know if I did that.
Most of the self-harm was not.
That's so interesting to me because I felt like I was there. I mean, obviously not in the shower, but like I just I felt like I was looking in on just like this very vulnerable, raw moment. So that just makes you a great, that comes out. Like your acting is coming out into the film. I know as a watcher. And I'm curious, what you both have to say about, with that being said, the film is set, let me just kind of give like a backstory. Like it's a backdrop of a deteriorating ranch. So
it's a ranch where Griff, the grandfather, has lived most of his life. And the Griff has PTSD from Vietnam War, where he went off. And when he came back, he had trouble, like many veterans did, reacclimating back into his life. And after the death of his wife, whom he loved, he really just closes himself up in this dusty old nasty ranch, which we were so blessed to find, because finding a ranch like that to shoot on is next to impossible, much less a ranch with a 100-year-old house and 800 acres. So courtyard, all these things that we had really specifically written in the script, like, where are we ever going to find this? And God's like, right here, right there. So he had what we needed.
where was it?
It's in Chilhowie, which is about 25 miles from here where we are. And it was just, we found some people who, the ranch was sitting empty. The house was going to be eventually reverted to some sort of wedding venue, but they hadn't done anything yet. So it still
Really?
had a lot of personality and character of an era gone by. And so we were able to use the house as kind of a film base. Some of the crew stayed there during the shoot, and the ranch was a working ranch. They had some cattle on it, but nobody was actually staying there. So we were able to rent the house and the ranch for about a month to shoot the film. And it also served as home base.
So funny. Well, we don't think about stuff like this.
Yeah,
Tell me.
and that was the sort of thing of like, I didn't even really question it when we were putting it together. I was just like,
Great about that. It's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, where? Joe's like, we'll find it.
Find a prison.
He's so laid back, and I'm so the worrier of the bunch.
And so there was a prison near here that had shut down recently. They had moved all the prisoners to a different facility, and so there's this like 250 person maximum security prison that's just sitting empty that they're not doing anything with. And so we had to jump through a bunch of hoops and a bunch of legal things that our line producer had to do to get us in there. But we ended up being able to just have that entire prison
to ourselves.
all to ourselves to shoot in. And so that was a very surreal experience. And that one was a really tough day for the whole crew. It was just a very oppressive place to be and space to be. It was very surreal actually being locked into a, prison cell, and
with a very large cockroach.
yeah, that as well.
No, thank you.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, that's what half the crew said when we brought that little cockroach out for that one.
Half
They're
the
like,
crew left.
we're just going to wait out here, and you just let us know when you're done. Makeup didn't want to stay.
No.
Didn't want to stay. They all went out. Well, just let us know when you're done.
We let the cockroach go once it finished its scene, but
set him free. He was not harmed in the making of that film.
No.
He was a freed cockroach to go in the wild. Probably eaten by a bird the minute I turned my back, but I tried. I tried to set him free.
I would immediately be like, you're a villain and I'm going to be here and destroy you because you're gross.
Well, yeah, it was like, because I had to, he kept flipping over on its back, and I
No!
kept having to.
He was not a Shakespearean trained
He
cockroach.
was not.
And I'm claiming.
I was like, dude, be professional. This is
he obviously
embarrassing.
was trying to get your attention, David. Like, hello, can I be a part of this film?
Well, at the cockroach auditions, he did the best of all of them.
Oh my gosh. That is, this is so irrelevant and random, but I always wanted to be an actress. I'm a TikTok actress that I make a funny joke with God. Like my life was to be a writer and an actress. Trauma lets you live in those fantasy worlds, right?
Yeah.
And I did it a lot. I did a lot of drama throughout high school before I dropped out. And then when I got older, this accidentally happened on social media, the pandemic, all the things. And I was like, a few things. I said, one, wow, people love me for who I am. Who knew? And second, I was like, well, God, I did say this is your way of me being in the camera, in front as an actress, right? And I make a sense of humor. And so hearing, kind of wanting to, so intrigued in that arena as a writer, David, and Joseph as an actor, I so value and appreciate and treasure the work and the passion that you put into it, because I feel like it takes a really special gift, especially to tap into characters like Jason's. That's a lot. I'm curious how I hear a lot of stories of people that have a hard time getting through after they do that character. And I think you did talk about it a little bit, like, but you were like, I can just shut it down. Like,
Yeah.
if you're comfortable, I want to talk about that. There's more questions I have about the movie, but
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One, I would say that, well, I just appreciate what you're doing and how you're able to still share yourself with people and share your story with people, and then share other people's story. I mean, that's what you're doing on this podcast as well. So you'll come to it that way, So I think
that takes a vulnerability that is actually really key to being a good actor.
Yeah.
So someone who can be vulnerable and open with people and take risks. Because being vulnerable is doing what you do is risky because you're exposing yourself to ridicule. And as an actor, Joseph does the same thing. He's very vulnerable with who he is and lets all of his feelings and emotions out there, not knowing how anyone's going to react. And it's a delayed gratification. He'll do that for months. We'll work on post-production. It'll be months before an audience sees it. And at that point, you don't know how they're going to react to what you do. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage all the way around.
Well, and with anyone with experience in it, if there is something and there is an aspect of it, that you see in the film that you're like, oh, that's not quite accurate. I'm still open to that. Like, I don't I don't want to think that I got everything right, but I tried to. But yeah, no, I would say for you, I mean, just telling stories and everything like that. So I just appreciate what you're doing.
you guys are so sweet. Well, David, if you write another film, I got so much trauma and PT.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding, but I'm kidding. But hey,
Yeah,
girl,
no,
if
we
you
always hold
just
open
envision
auditions.
me,
No, we always hold open auditions. So we need to know what we'll keep you posted when we have an
no
audition. So
pressure.
you can
I'm
do it.
just putting you on this random spot, like taking advantage of the moment.
It's so funny you say it because when we had auditions for Elephant, originally the script called for Jason's mom, Shelley, to be Griff's daughter. And so the script had written, and she was actually taking her son back to her dad. And when we had auditions for Shelley, Sharon Lanier, who auditioned and got the role, was so amazing. She brought this incredible, fierce force to Shelley that we said, yes, that's her. That's the Shelley from the script. And so we said, well, okay, we're going to rewrite the script to make this the son and or make her the stepmother and let her be Jason's mother in the show. And it forced his dad, who had died in prison, to now be Griff's son. And that brought up a whole different level of drama in a different way that we had not expected. And was not written in the script. But because we had to have the best actor for the job, and Sharon was the best actor in the job. And once she got on set and started working with Joseph, there was this chemistry, this mother-son chemistry between them that was just electric from the moment they started working together.
It was good. That was good, though. That was like my favorite part. Like, was that dynamic? Like, I felt that. Like, I felt David's character, like, in that regard of like inner child son, like just the unconditional through like destruction and through the hard stuff. Like, I definitely felt that, like, in that regard. Like, just thinking about it makes me a little emotional. Like, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
Like, I could
no,
go on
no,
and on and on.
You were about to say something.
What's so special about that is it because Shelley took on Jason when she didn't have to.
Oh,
And after her husband died, she could have just walked away because he wasn't her biological son. He was her stepson. He was the man she loved son. And so because of that, she could have walked away. But the fact that she didn't, she stayed when Griff walked away. She stayed when the rest of the family walked away. And she loved him so unconditionally that love reaches across. And when you see Jason just flailing away at it, hurting her and lashing out at her, and you realize how much love she's pouring into him that she did not have to give, that makes that relationship not only tenuous, but so much more potent and powerful than we originally wrote it.
Yeah. And just even that slap that she gives him when she first sees him, like she's the only one reaching out to him, like, and so like, that was a really great scene to shoot with her because she totally switched everything up on me.
It wasn't that to me. She told me she was gonna.
Okay.
She didn't tell you.
Yeah. They didn't tell me that in that scene when we shot it, what was supposed to happen in the scene was I was supposed to ask for her that if she brought me my cigarette that I asked for, and then she was supposed to give it to me, and then I was supposed to go and light it, and we were supposed to keep having that conversation. And so she switched it up, and she went and she pulls out the cigarette, and I go to grab for it, and then she pulls it away and starts lighting it herself, and then she smokes it, and then I was like, and then I went over there, and then I went and sat down.
Sounded like a baby.
And like, pouted about it, and then we went, and then we like exchanged a few lines back and forth, and then got back on the script, and then kept going.
Oh my
And so it was
God.
like, and so like it was great because I was game for anything,
makes
you know,
you mad.
to just go for it. But it, like, yeah, for Jason, that really pissed me off. So I was like, yeah, it was so good. And so she was just like, you never knew what to expect from her. So you just kind of had to stay on your toes. And
She's
just,
not only a beautiful person, but such a good actor and such a wonderful talent to work with. We had just a great time with Sharon. She was fantastic.
yeah.
That's such a, you guys are like, my questions are like you're already answering. That is so Jesus. That just shows how amazing you are at these interviews. I'm curious. Okay, so we talked about Sharon as Shelley. That's amazing. I want to talk about like the actor like Rick McVee as Griff Bowden. Like I'm curious, like, did that impact the film's dynamic also? Like what was in that choice regard? Like that's
From Rick. I work at a professional theater here in the area. So it's a little theater called the Barter Theater, and it's the State Theater of Virginia, and it's here in our little town. And Rick McVeigh and I worked on stage there together as actors for years, and we shared the stage. So when it came time to find Griff, I pretty much always had Rick in my head when I was writing the character as the person who could play it. He had done bit parts in our other movies that we had made, and I already knew he was a very reliable film actor. But I knew Griff was going to push him further than anything else we'd given him to do. And I knew he was already the actor that I wanted for that role. And of course, when we mentioned it to him, he was like, 100% yes, I want to do this. And so I knew from him, he's a stage actor and has been a stage actor for dozens of years and has the most wonderful sense of audience. And I think that's what's so great is about pulling all these people off stage. Joseph was a stage actor too, and I was as myself. And I think what's great is when you're a stage actor, the audience is right there. And so when you say something funny, you get immediate feedback. Or when you say something hard or you get into a dramatic moment, you get immediate feedback from the audience that does not exist in film. And after years and years of working with live audiences, you kind of get to learn how to tell stories in a certain way. You learn your acting chops. You kind of learn what's effective with people and what isn't. And so being able to take that experience and translate it to the camera gave us more confidence to say, I really feel like audiences are going to respond this way with this line and with this delivery. And it was so exciting to be at the premiere and watch the audience and hear them laugh at the jokes or see them tear up at the hard moments and go, yes, they responded the way we thought we would. And Rick McVeigh is a kind of man who's just so genuine as a human being that his characters come across so rich and warm and genuine, and he knows how to deliver a line in just the right way because he's been in front of thousands upon thousands of people performing over his career. He knows how people read lines. That stage experience was fantastic.
Well, then just sharing himself with us, I think, too. It was so great. One rehearsal, and I won't get into the details, but one rehearsal that we were doing, it was just David and Rick and I. And we got to a point kind of talking about the Griff and Jason and Connor dynamic and the generational trauma and the guilt that they all feel over what happened and how the family has been broken up and division in family, essentially. And it was just really sweet that like I shared something that was super personal from me, and David did the same, and Rick did the same. And it was so that rehearsal in particular, I mean, we were sharing personal things along the journey all the time, but that particular rehearsal was just sharing very personal, intimate details, you know, emotionally with each other, and that related to the film and helped us understand these dynamics in the film a little bit clearer, and then also just all drew us together in a really close way. And I think that probably affected Rick and I's relationship in some way and our closeness. I mean, we still keep up. I'm like, I'm gonna go get coffee with him tomorrow. You know, he's he's a good friend, and that I think translated onto the screen as well in some way. So just his willingness to just kind of open himself up that way too.
I'm curious. So now we're going to get real raw. Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any like significant challenges during the production? Like, especially given the film's ambitious like scope, as noted by Cross Purposes Production? I'm just curious, like, come on, let us in a little bit more. Were there?
Yeah.
There were a lot of difficult things, a lot of challenges.
Hey, you guys, if this episode hit home, do me a favor. Screenshot it, share it to your stories, and tag me, Ashley Henriott, so I can hype you up. And if you're feeling bold, leave a review. It helps this podcast reach more women who need it. Remember, confidence isn't something we wait for. It's something you build. Keep going, keep growing, and I'll see you next time on Confidence and Coffee right here.